Hey guys, for those of you that don't know me, I have ended Challenger in the last 4 sets, and today I will be reviewing a VOD from a Masters level player. So this player has peaked around 250 LP in Masters in set 7. Right now he's sitting at Diamond 2, 23 LP, and he has listed a bunch of questions he wanted to ask me as I reviewed his VOD. So I figured that most of you watching this video will probably be below his rank, and I think that a lot of you will find the answers to these questions very helpful. I'll make sure to only show the critical points in the VOD. And without further ado, let's get right into it. So here he decides to hold the Poppy, Kayle, Renekton. I actually really like this play because he chose to do this instead of holding the Poppy and the Wukong. Poppy and Wukong is the stronger board, but Renekton and Kayle play easier into the AD tree. For example, Kayle plays into Duelist, Renekton plays into Jax. But the problem with holding Wukong is that you have to angle towards Gadgetines because you're playing around your Poppy. So again, here he picks up the Gangplank, which is good. This gives you 2 duelists with Kayle. Ooh. So what ended up happening was the minion round dropped 2 Rells, and then because there was a Rell in the shop, he decides to make the Rell 2. I honestly am not 100% sure if that is the right play. The reason why is because you have Chain, Bow, Sword. There isn't really any good slammable items that will impact your early game. And the fact, like, whenever you want to invest 6 gold into making a 2-star 2-cost unit early, you're playing around the fact that you're going to win streak. And if you aren't able to win fights, even though you made this Rell 2, there is a very high chance that you're going to go bot 4 because you invested so much money into something that is still not going to win you any fights. So that's my opinion. Another thing is that Rell, again, plays more into the AP tree, whereas these items plays into the AD tree. So even though you have this Rell 2, you probably aren't going to win many fights because your items just aren't suited for playing AP. So here, first augment choice, I think Luden's was fine. Because he already made the Rell 2. So he got rewarded for making the Rell 2, even though I am not 100% sure if it was right, but it did work out in the end. And I think with Luden's, he might be able to potentially streak around this Rell 2, but we'll see. So in this spot, generally, you want to play Gangplank over the Kayle. Because you have Luden's, you want to play a unit that actually casts its spell. Kayle does not cast, well, Gangplank does, so this would be the stronger board. So he decides to level here, which is surprising to me. The reason why I think leveling here is not that good is because I don't think this board is going to actually be able to win fights. Even though you have this Rell 2, I mean, this Rell 2 definitely helps a lot, but you're playing around Luden's and you're playing around Duelists, and Duelists tend to not cast that much. So your early game, you're basically playing down an Augment, and the fact that like slamming GS on this Kayle isn't going to impact your fights at all, because remember, in this spot, because you're playing around Luden's, I would say like 70% of your damage is going to come from your Luden's. Even though GS goes into every late game comp, I personally think that it's better to greed these components and go for a better item off carousel because it'll probably have more impact. For example, like Luden's, you generally want to play around an AP heavy comp that constantly spams their spells. You probably could have went for Tyr, for Shiv, or Shojin, but that's my opinion. I definitely would have greeded the items here. So this guy's level 3, so I think that even though he leveled, it probably would not have impacted the fight because he had a Rell 2, he would probably have won either way. Kayle pair and Yuumi. Yeah, this is fine. Again, I just think that Gangplank is stronger than Kayle just because Gangplank casts, but you do have a Kayle pair, so I guess doing this is fine as well. This guy's playing loaded dice. If this player knows the strategy, it's probably like guaranteed top 2, top 3 for him. This person would just use loaded dice on the threats and then 3-star all his threats. So he wins this fight as well. This was a Rell 2 diff, so this leveling did reward him there. So yeah, I think this is good. He's transitioning out of the Duelist because he realizes that his Augment is more angled towards AP. So whenever you get a shop like this, you should always find an opportunity to transition out of your shitty units. And this would allow him to make 10 as well, so I really like what he did here. Let's see what item he goes for off carousel. So right now I think he slammed GS, so he has a chain. So in this spot, it's probably Sunfire. But again, if he greeted, he would have probably went for tier here, and he probably would have got it because he would have been lower pick prio, and he could have slammed Shiver Shojin, which would have infinitely scaled better into, or not scale better, but it would have been a lot more impactful right now than a GS would have been. Any pair is huge when you're playing around Ludens. Yep, this is fine. Yeah, leveling here is good. You usually always go level 5 here on 2-5. Yep, so he loses this fight. That's fine. Here I would try to find a way to make 20 if possible. I'm trying to see if there's a way you could do it. Honestly, you can't. In this case, it's more valuable to hold the pairs than to make 20. So I like what he's doing here. I generally would, I mean, it's like nitpicky, but I would generally put my more tanky unit out in the front. It's just because if your Poppy is out there alone like that, it's just going to get focus fired and die instantly. You kind of want to like split the aggro between your tanks. Lux 2 is pretty big. So here I would have taken the opportunity to play Camila and Leblanc to check what the admin is. I'm not sure if he does it, but this information is going to be really helpful in determining whether you want to play around Leblanc or Soraka. And usually you want to make that check during this round because it gives you a lot of direction into what items you want to build. So he doesn't do that, which is fine, I guess. It's just like a little tip. It gives you a lot of direction and information. Tier is really good. He definitely... yeah, I would definitely hold the LeBlanc here. Because whenever you're playing around Ludens, you're always going to be playing around like a level 7 AP board. Oh, okay. Yeah, I definitely... I would not have sold the LeBlanc there. I probably would have sold... I would have sold these two Gallios and the Poppy just because we're getting into stage 3 too, and there is like a chance you might have to roll at stage 3 too, and you might want to hold on to the Blanc to hit your pairs. That's my personal opinion. Like the Galio, like I really don't think the Galio is that valuable starting from stage 3, especially since you're playing around your Ludens. Because when you're playing around Ludens, you want to spike at stage 3, 2, or for 1, and you're generally rolling. At that point, you would want to like pivot out of the shitty Poppy and the Galio. So the LeBlanc would infinitely be more valuable. These are not very good in my opinion. I would rerule this. Like you want a comp that could play around. Yeah, so I think Battle Mage. So like, I think Battle Mage was not right here because the moment you pick Ludens, you already know that you're going to be playing around Zoe, LeBlanc, Sona, Talia, Soraka, and whenever you play these units, you almost never want to like put them in the front 2 rows, or they're just going to like die randomly. So my opinion is that these two augments, even though like they both give magic damage, they kind of contradict each other because when you're playing Ludens, you want to play like a backline AP carry, but if you're playing Battle Mage, you want to play around the comp that frontlines all their units. So personally, I would have rerolled this Battle Mage because now if you play into your AP board, you're going to be either forced to frontline all your AP carries and they're going to die randomly, or you're basically going to be playing down an augment because the AP you get from Battle Mage really only is helpful on your carries, and if your carries are on the backline, they're not going to be benefiting at all from that augment. So he hits the Annie 2 here, which is really huge, I would say. He levels here. I wouldn't roll here because he's really off from all his pairs and his board is relatively upgraded, which is fine. If he loses the next 2 rounds, I would consider leveling to 7 on 3-5 and rolling down, but it highly depends on the state of the lobby. Okay. So here he hits the Yuumi 2 and Alistar pair. I mean, yeah, this is definitely stronger. Oh, I think he had a question here on whether he should sell this Alistar pair for Econ. The answer is no, because you don't sell this pair because you only lose 1 gold for holding this pair. And you're probably going to be rolling down at 4-1 anyway, and you're probably going to be looking for this Alistar too. So it's better to just spend 1 or 2 gold to hold this unit instead of selling it and then rolling more later just to look for that unit again, if that makes sense. Because Alistar 2 is going into your mid-game board for sure, because you already have this 2-star Annie, and you have Luden, so you're guaranteed to be playing around this Alistar, so this is why you always hold this. So right now, what are his items? He has Chain, Rod, Tier. So whenever I play around Ludens, I always go for as many tiers as possible because your team benefits the most from casting more, and tier could literally build into everything. Blue buff, Shojin, Shiv. So even though like if you go tier from carousel, like you could probably slam blue buff or you could greed for Shiv, Shojin. There's just so many options you could go, but I wonder what he decides to take from carousel here. So tier is gone. I think he has chain, right? I would probably go the belt here for Sunfire. And he does, which is good. So this Zoe is very valuable. Wonder if he buys it. Zoe is like the single best unit you could play when you're playing Ludens because she just casts so much with blue buff. Okay, that's good. So probably want to hold on to the Asol. Asol is a very good flex AP carry if you don't hit your main carries. So looking at the state of this game, I would definitely level to 7 here and roll down until my board is stable, and probably try to play around units that use Ludens the best. Stuff like Leblanc, Sona, Zoe, but honestly it depends on what he hits. So he has a Zoe pair here, also has a Cho'Gath. I would probably pick up both, because if you hit a Cho'Gath too, it just goes in, right? So one thing I would so he gets a tome here. I would personally pop the tome only after my board is stabilized, because if you pop the tome now, you're going to get a trait based on your current board, based on from units that you might not even play later. So it's better, in my opinion, it's better to roll down for the board you want to play first, pop the tome, and then that gives you the highest chance of using the trait you get to maximize your board strength. It's probably Nyla for Poppy. I mean, that's fine, I guess. Yeah, I probably would have waited a turn. See, now you're in a situation where you get like 4 shitty traits because you didn't really fully transition your board yet. he was about to slam Morello and then he realized he had Sunfire, which is good. He caught it last second. Let me look at what items he look at what items he decided to slam. So JG is okay, I think. I think this would be a... Yeah, I guess it would just be a Shiv slam, I guess. Like, it really sucks that he didn't get dropped any tiers, because Ludens benefits the most from tiers. Like, if you just have like a Zoe with blue buff, she just goes infinite and 1v9s their entire team. It is a reroll, yeah. So here, Stoneweaver, Chrono Break. I think Stoneweaver is pretty good. I think these two are both good, but I think Talia spikes your board the hardest right now because it gives you the opportunity to play 5-star Guardians with like an actual carry. That's good. I think I probably would have done the same thing. Yeah, I think that's fine. See, again, remember, guys, when I said that Ludens and Battle Mage contradicts each other? Basically, the AP you get from Battle Mage benefits the most on your Talia. And basically, I guess you do get the armor for your front line, but you're not really getting the full value out of Battle Mage, in my opinion. Battle Mage is really good for stuff like Oxforce, Viego, and Jax, because every single unit is going into the front line and they all use armor and AP really well. But again, in like a Star Guardian comp, you're probably only frontlining like a few of your units, and the units that use AP that need it the most aren't going to be getting it. So essentially, like, you're kind of like down half a prismatic here. Not like the best. So he has belt on his Rell. One thing to be thinking about is what item you would want to try to go for from carousel. So I think there's two options. You could go for belt again to slam the Warmogs, or you could go for another tier and hope to get like a blue buff or a Shojin from carousel, or blue buff and Shojin from the dragon round. It's belt here. So he doesn't go for the belt. Instead, he goes for a Syndra. I guess he went for the Syndra because of the Syndra. I don't think that's correct. I just think like the Warmogs is infinitely more valuable. Like, because the problem is like this belt could only be a Warmogs. Because you already have a Sunfire, there's no other item this belt could be. It could be a redemption, but you want to use it could be a redemption, right? But to make a redemption, you would need a tier. And you would rather use the tier to make a blue buff than a blue buff or a Shojin than a redemption, because you have Ludens. So like in this situation, like the belt is really inflexible. You would always want to take an item off carousel that could eliminate your inflexible components. In this case, you have a belt. You want to make Warmogs to kill off the belt. But that's my opinion. I personally would have leveled to 8 here and slight rolled. I think everyone is going to spike here, and if you don't level here and roll, you're going to take infinite. Probably need to pick up this Zoe too. And remember that mistake earlier in the game where he forgot to play admin 2 into admin 2 in the minion round. If he had that information, he could have had some extra insights into whether he wanted to play around LeBlanc or Soraka. But I think he never tested it, and basically it's an out that he basically threw out the window. Yeah, you hold the LeBlanc here. It's fine. So here I would at least there's definitely a lot of ways you could upgrade your board. I think you would have to play around 5 Star Guardians here, simply because you don't have a mana item on your Talia. And because mana generation is so good for Ludens, then it makes a lot of sense to play Star Guardians. But I think you don't need to play the Spellslingers, because your main source of damage is going to come from your Ludens. And I guess it would help Talia a little, but I think it's just better to drop 2 Spellslingers and play better units. It's probably belt here. Actually, let me see. What would I go here? Yeah, see, so remember how I said I think he should have went for belt off carousel. He would have the Warmogs here. And then he would instead he wouldn't have this sword on the Syndra. He would only have this glove. This is the problem with not eliminating your non-flexible components off of... This is the problem with not eliminating your non-flexible components through carousel. Because now you have this belt, and like you basically have like 2 components you need to kill off, and the only option he can really go here is probably Warmogs and IE, which Warmogs is good, but I think IE is definitely not very good here. But in the situation where he actually went for the belt, he would have Warmogs, and then he would be playing around this glove, and then he would just take the belt and make Guardbreaker, and then he would put Shiv on someone else, and he would have GS, Guardbreaker, JG, and then Talia would just one-shot everything. Okay. You definitely hold the Nunu here. Okay. I mean, that's fine. I would have tried to play the Nunu somehow. Especially since you had Mascot Emblem. Definitely would have held the Soraka and the Sona. because right now you still have 1-star Talia. It's not clear it's not exactly clear that like you want to. Okay, so let me talk about this point more. So there is so right now he has a 1-star Talia and a 1-star Soraka, right? Yes, he has the Talia Hero Augment. However, you have to keep in mind that this is the Talia support augment. The support augment for Talia doesn't actually allow your Talia to do more damage. What it does is it gives your team additional tankiness, so you could still choose whether or not you want to carry between Talia or Soraka. And I would say, like, yes, like a Talia 1 is better than a Soraka 1 in this case. But if you manage to hit the Soraka 2, one thing you should strongly consider is whether or not you should transfer over the items to Soraka, in my opinion at least. So I definitely would not have sold the Soraka here, even though the Talia 1 is stronger. I would have held the Soraka as an out that I could potentially hit, because it would double my chances of hitting a 2-star 4 cost. But yeah, that's my thoughts. Yeah, losing fights. I think it's because he has a 1-star Talia. Basically down half a prismatic. And I think it's also because he didn't commit all his gold to his roll down yet, because every single other player in the lobby rolled to 0. Like, in situations like these, you should just recognize that you're playing for top 4, and then you just go 0 every turn, to be honest. You can't go 9 here. Also think that the Syndra is not very valuable in this comp, at least. Or, sorry. For some reason, I completely forgot that Syndra is a Star Guardian. So yes, she would be good in this comp. Definitely would not have rolled that deep. The reason why is because you're playing around the Syndra, you definitely want to... Because like you're playing around the Syndra, you want to throw stuff into the board, right? But if you have nothing on your bench, you're not actually getting any value out of the Syndra. I also think he had a question about positioning. He asked me about his positioning late game. I mean, I think the positioning is fine. You have Nyla in between your 2 tanks, healing them. You just need to make sure that your Talia is on the right side, on the opposite side of their carry. But in this case, because they have a Talia as well, yours just loses out. This person had loaded dice. I'm surprised he didn't play around the threat board. So let's see. Here probably would scout the lobby a bit. If there's a lot of AP, Aegis is good. You already have Sunfire, so you don't go from Rello. So these gloves is probably the best option here. If it's not these gloves, it's probably QSS. Man, they really need to fix this bug where you can't see like the enemy teams like units or HP and items. So it's a 6th. That's fine. I definitely think there were things that this player could have done differently that would have affected the outcome of his placement. So I think that after reviewing this VOD, I think there were a couple of key stages or decisions that could have impacted your placement in this game. The first one is I think that making the Rell 2 committed you to AP since round 1-4. Like I said before, this is a huge gold investment, and if you have AD items, then you would have to play around these items somehow and play towards AP, or you would give up on the Rell 2 later and play towards AD. This also commits you out of playing any reroll comp just because of how much gold you invested into this in a reroll meta, which I think is not good. So the next one is leveling at 2-1. I think leveling at 2-1 was a mistake. Just because, at least, well, in my elo, I don't think this is a board that could win fights because you have Ludens, and you won't be able to proc Ludens that much with Duelists, and you have no good slammable items. GS is not a good slam early game because It's a lot more impactful late game than early game. Battle Mage was a mistake for sure. Again, contradicting augments, Luden's Battle Mage, even though they look like they complement each other. Like, you need to frontline all your AP carries, which I don't think is that good. You definitely should have went for belt off carousel, off the last carousel to slime Warmogs. This is the reason why I think this player ended up with the Zeeks at the end, which was basically a dead item. And finally, I also think that at stage 4 or 5, he should have rolled a bit. Just because if you notice, like, there are a lot of other Taliyah players in this lobby. And by not rolling here, you're allowing all the other players to roll first, giving them the chance to take the Taliyahs out of the pool. And again, you're probably going to bleed anyway here if you don't roll, because everyone tends to spike at this stage. So that is my feedback. I hope you guys found this helpful. And if you guys want more VOD reviews, let me know in the comments below. I will see you guys next time.